beautiful day it is today in the beautiful port city of Colombo, a very special, memorable day for Sri Lankan Navy, and also a very special and a memorable day for cooperation between our two countries, Australia and Sri Lanka. We all love gifts. Some gifts are very expensive. Some gifts are symbolic and some gifts are useful. When I look at this beautiful ship just behind me, I would say this gift is a very expensive, symbolic and a very useful gift. So when you receive such a gift, you are very happy. And also, when the individuals perform, as individuals, we perform the job well, we receive medals, we receive commendations, we receive rewards. But when a Navy is performing, normally it is just a word. But in this case, we have received a beautiful ship from the government of Australia in appreciation of the work done by the Sri Lankan Navy in preventing irregular migration from sea.
I'm delighted to join you here this morning for this significant event which marks another step forward in our people smuggling cooperation in Sri Lanka. Our cooperation to address the shared challenge of people smuggling has never been stronger, and indeed the successful second meeting of the Sri Lanka-Australia Joint Working Group on people smuggling and other transnational crime took place in Canberra earlier this week. During that meeting, we discussed ongoing operational cooperation and further initiatives for the future, both bilateral and regional. As you'll be aware, the Australian Government has taken a firm policy approach to deter would-be people smugglers from trying to reach Australia illegally by boat. Our new policy approach, which was introduced by the current Australian Government and was named Operation Sovereign Borders, is a tough military-led border security initiative that has been set up to stop the boats, to prevent people risking their lives at sea at the hands of criminals, and to preserve the integrity of Australia's immigration program. Under this policy, people who arrive illegally by boat will never be resettled in Australia. Those with refugee claims will be transferred to Papua New Guinea or Nauru. Others will be returned to their home country or a country in which they have a right of residence. These tough new measures illustrate the determination and the commitment of Australia to combating the challenge of people smuggling. Our policies are clearly working. It's now over 4 months since any boats organised by people smugglers arrived on Australian shores. This is a significant achievement. But despite the fact that the boats are stopping, the Australian Government remains committed to maintaining the intensity of our border operations. We recognise that only a sustained long-term commitment will ensure that we maintain control of our borders. In line with this approach, at Shopper in November last year, our Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, announced Australia's gifting of 2 retired Australian-made class patrol boats to the Sri Lankan Navy. As the Prime Minister said at the time, the 2 vessels will enhance Sri Lanka's search and rescue capacity and will assist with our mutual efforts to combat people smuggling. The vessel that's arrived here today in Colombo was formally transferred from Australia to Sri Lanka during a time-honoured flag transfer ceremony in Cairns, Australia last month, and the deed of transfer was signed in Canberra just last Tuesday. Prior to that, Australian customs officers came to Sri Lanka and trained Sri Lankan Navy personnel in day-to-day operational aspects and maintenance. That training was continued in Australia, where the teams worked together on activities ranging from familiarisation of electronic systems and equipment on board to undertaking operational drills. This has allowed crews from both nations to share and exchange their knowledge and experience of operating in a maritime environment. Today we take the next step in the transfer process and we welcome the first of the vessels to Sri Lanka. In another practical example of the excellent cooperation between Australia and Sri Lanka, this vessel has been sailed from Cairns to Colombo by a crew comprised of 10 Sri Lankan and 2 Australian officers. The vessel has served Australia well over a number of years of service and has continued to be highly agile and responsive during operations. It has a range of 1,000 nautical miles at 20 knots and it offers accommodation for up to 16 people. During its 14 years as an Australian customs vessel, it has completed 3,759 sea days and steamed 284,026 nautical miles. We know that the vessel will continue its exceptional performance here in Sri Lanka and that it will complement the current fleet of the Sri Lankan Navy and will also underline and add in a very practical way to the commitment of Sri Lanka to curb the people smuggling trade.